Well, welcome to Something to Talk About. Today I have a really fun guest. I call him fun because we've known each other for many, many years, but he's had his hands in a lot of different things throughout his life, education being one of the big ones. We're going to catch up with Juan Flores, who is now with Westcare Pacific Island. We'll talk to him about veterans, we'll talk to him about education, and we'll talk to him, I don't know, the good old days. We can go back as far as we want to go with Juan Flores here on Something to Talk About. Welcome to Something to Talk About. Here we are in Kings into Mooning. Now we have a table full of food.
Fruit.
Right now. He's anti-carb. Are you anti-carb?
No,
or you just like carb.
I've been failing royally, but I'm trying not to eat carbs.
Isn't it too late in your life to start looking at dietary considerations?
I think I want to try to add at least 2 years to my life.
Okay, so
if I try it now, but
well, they brought out some mozzarella sticks. So did you skin it before you?
No, I ate the outside part. So that's my
it's
carbs
hard.
for the day.
I should have ordered kadu. You want some kadu?
No.
Because kadu is like the thing, right? I mean, don't you say that you come here and order it out?
I usually, if I get kadu, it's for my mom.
Yeah.
Kadu and beef shank, yeah.
That's number one seller over here. As you can imagine, it's been a while since I've had any conversations with Juan Flores. We haven't had a reason to have a conversation with you.
That's right, because I'm not a DOE.
Do you say that it's like a badge? Like, was that, phew, I'm not a DOE, or reminiscing that you're not a DOE, or thank God I'm not a DOE?
I think a little bit of all of the above. I think there are a lot of things I miss, but there are a lot of reasons why it's great to move on.
Yeah.
I
have to ask you, let's just get this out of the way, because it really will feel like an elephant if I don't say anything.
Or a Carabao.
Or a Carabao.
We don't have elephants on.
Okay. When John Fernandez was going through that first intense few weeks, months of just the horrible interaction with the board, were you feeling it?
Yeah, I think I understood what was knotting up in his stomach, probably, or feeling like you're wondering if, or he was wondering whether or not he made the right decision to take the position or to backtrack and look at things that should or should not have been done. Yeah, all of that came back. I even thought of the days when, people came over to my house and wanted to find out what was going on, or, wanted to just commiserate. And so I saw him once in the first few weeks. I only got a chance to say hello to him. It was at the Payless. I almost felt like we needed to start a club, right? We've been.
How many members would you have in the ousted superintendent club? What would that be?
I was going to be nicer, just say those who were challenged by a board club.
Okay.
But I feel like it's a special club.
It's a special club.
It's one that I don't suggest for anybody.
Yeah. Did you at one point say that to yourself? Like, what was I thinking? I had a great job on the mainland, or I could possibly go back someplace else and just be hassle-free.
Felix Camacho and Francis Tarico Gatewood were the two who convinced me to apply. They didn't.
Let's blame them.
No, I don't blame them, but they were the ones who convinced me just to apply. When I got offered the position, which was a surprise to me that I got offered, that was still my decision. But every so often, both Felix and Francis apologized to me. But no, I have a friend. Her name is Beth Meir. She and I graduated from college together, and we made a pact at the graduation grounds to live our lives so we don't regret things, right? So, yeah, there were some things I didn't like. There were some things that didn't work out well, but, I still remember going to visit teachers or to meet up with a parent. I mean, a parent, one time we solved a problem. I can't remember what it was. And the parent called me up and she said, "You tell me when you're going to run for senator."
Oh.
And I said to her, first of all, that's not why I do this thing. And secondly, I don't think I could ever make it if I ran for senator. But you remember that, you try to remember those things. It's kind of like high school. I don't think I remember the bad things in high school anymore. I just smile and remember all the good things.
So when you've come from the kind of, really public controversy, and there's some public shaming, and there was a bunch of yucky things that happened. We don't have to go through the details, but when you were going through all of that, did you? Thanks. Our food has arrived. You pull it closer to you because you can take the carb side or the protein side.
I'll take the protein
All
side.
right.
Yeah.
Did it, in the end, when you look back at it, and even during the time you were going through it, was there always that bigger picture? Because I think John Fernandez says the same thing. It's like there's something that tugs, that's a deeper purpose, a deeper mission, that I'm wondering whether or not that supersedes everything. Like, even when you were at the worst possible moment, did you still have your eye on this service that you offered to these 30-odd thousand kids a day is bigger than this?
Absolutely. And I think most of us have that, right? Like, what's the big picture? Coming from the governor's office with Felix Calvo on a Thursday before payday, knowing we were going to have money for payroll.
Felix Calvo or Felix Calvo?
Well, Felix Camacho was the governor, but Felix Calvo was our accountant in the business office.
Okay.
And we had to go to the governor's office every so often.
Oh, gosh.
And sometimes when we were told initially that we might not have enough money, I would say to them, and the governor's staff knew this, do you want me to call the governor, or should I call or should you call the governor? But we would walk out of there and they would assure us, no, the money's going to come. Don't worry about it. That was worth something, right? And that was the big picture. The big picture wasn't how much that we have to do to go and grovel for money, or my big issue of the day was direct instruction. Mm-hmm. And the bottom line is, kids are not going to go anywhere if they can't read. And kids or adults have to read the newspaper. They have to read websites so that they can be informed. So that's what kept driving me. And I won't mention who it is, but there was a board member who at one point said, our kids don't need to know how to read. They can just work with their hands. And I guess what bothered me more than...
So how did you get on the board?
Well, yeah, that's...
Okay.
What bothered me was that he didn't get jumped on by the other board members. That they didn't take him outside, take him out back. But that was my big thing. What are we going to do? Because at the time, I read a lot about public education, and the biggest concern about public education is it's not being the equalizer it's supposed to be. Mm-hmm. Because those of privilege still have privilege. Those who don't have privilege, even with the Secretary's concern, the Secretary of Education's concern about school choice, there are a lot of kids out there whose families either don't have the capacity to make the choice or they don't want to make the choice. So who's going to look out for those kids, right? And so that's the big picture.
The choices like school vouchers, you mean?
Right, and which school is going to be best for them, right? So even if Guam had, let's say Guam had a system where you could send your kid to any school you want on the island, any public school on the island, because we all know some of them have better reputations than others, right? Will the families really know which ones are the better schools? And if not, how are the kids going to benefit from not necessarily the better schools, but the right schools? So I think I joined John in that maybe our club has some other membership criteria, but one criterion has to be, are we looking at the big picture?
Well, I don't know. I was just listening to Phil Leandro on the radio talking this morning about this debate over Simon Sanchez High School, and is double session worth it for these kids? And when you have no other options, if you're served up a double session as hey, welcome to the 2017 school year, you're already, it feels like you're already starting off at a deficit.
That's right. But did you see how quickly that casino went up at Paseo, by the way?
Telling you. See how quickly Festback went up?
Do we have the technology to do something quick? Maybe it's only going to last for 2 or 3 years. Although we used to joke around about how DOE had temporary buildings that lasted for 25 years, but they lasted for 25 years, right? So
that's the answer. I think John Fernandez was talking about that.
Yeah.
Trying to put in these temporary buildings so that you don't have to have two different, kids going to double session.
Right.
Do you think that is the biggest, sin you can commit on a school kid coming into a
double
school
session?
year? Yeah. Or does it have its place?
I think it has, and we've done it before, right? I don't think it's been good. I think probably the most disruptive thing is that you don't have a chance to build community when the kids are only there for half the day, and then they have to leave. It's a different set of teachers in the morning from the teachers in the afternoon. There's no way of building what kids need to do after school if that's necessary. I think that's probably one of the biggest sins in public education. The other sin is probably not having the wherewithal to even teach. And it's not just textbooks, it's time, it's a good environment, but whatever's getting in the way of teaching and learning, that's what we ought to focus on. And again, that's part of what our club members, I think, probably think about.
Do you have a list of people like potential members that you would solicit?
Well, some of them are gone, so they're no longer of this world. But and we probably, if we got together, we probably wouldn't all agree on what's the best thing to do.
You would all have like experiences,
Yeah.
though, that if you were together in a room, I wouldn't imagine that you would each kowtow to the other.
That would be interesting, actually, to sit down and say, if we all made a list of the top 10 things we want to make sure we could do or we would have, right? How many of those items would be in common?
Would they be in line with the 14 points of the Adequate Education Act?
I bet a lot of them
Some
would
of
be.
them? Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
Yeah.
Well, that's the part of education. I still have some other questions that we could ask him on the other side of this break. But really, Juan Flores has taken on a different position with a whole different group of people, which are, by all accounts, running into some trouble. Even with this new administration. I was
Right.
listening to the new Veterans Affairs Secretary talking about his terrible diagnosis for veterans everywhere. So we'll talk a little bit about that when we come back after eating some of this and taking a break, right? Welcome back, and thank you to Juan Flores for spending so much time with us. We've had a lot of
Great to be here.
off the set conversation, just because we go back to high school, and
right.
we have we're family, for sure. I mean, everybody's family. Does it seem like we just celebrated our 40th anniversary?
Wow.
For,
You've
our
been out of high school for 40 years?
Yeah, you've been out for like
That's
what,
a long
41?
time. 41 years. We're counting down to 60.
Yeah, but you went to high school here. He's an elitist. Did that bother you? Did you take it?
It did
for
bother
what
me.
Did it? Because I thought I took it. I sort of took it with tongue in cheek, but you did the FD boys, man. I tell you what.
Well, there could have been a reason to take it tongue in cheek, but I think one of the things that bothered me was that the editorial, I think, started out by celebrating someone going to Tumont High School in JFK, and then turned to, the reason why he didn't want to go to Father Duenas, and Father Duenas having the reputation of being an elitist school. There's no doubt that we always thought that there was something special about our experience, but most of us, especially back then, came from fairly modest backgrounds, right? Even though our families, put us in Catholic school all our lives, but that was back when Catholic schools were pretty inexpensive, because I think the nuns and the priests did not get paid what they should have gotten paid. So the idea of being considered elitist, I think, might be unfair. Although, obviously, we thought we were the greatest in the world.
Well,
but
I think
everybody does that.
But don't you think that everybody has an elitist group of people that there's the people who have commonalities? Your discarded education superintendent group that you want to start is an elite
That's
group
right.
on its own. But so that's the way I took it, and I think that everybody has an elite group of people that they hang with. But did it suggest to you that you were spoiled rich boys? Would
I think
that have been the difference?
that's what a lot of people have interpreted it to
Yeah.
mean. And quite honestly, we didn't see it that way. Although, there's no doubt there were some people in our class whose families were pretty prominent families. I mean, we had two of our classmates were sons of the current governor,
Yeah.
So there was something pretty special about some of the guys. But if you heard all the stories, you'd wonder about whether or not we had a right to consider ourselves elitists, both academic and social stories. Probably the thing that was most important about our education is that we were backed up by parents or families that said we had to get an education. By hook or by crook, we had to finish high school and we had to think about how we were going to take advantage of that high school education. And I don't think that that's unique to Father Duenas or the Academy or Notre Dame. You know, when I think of people from GW and JFK and Voc Tech from our era who've become great people and great leaders on our island, probably the elitist group is those individuals who were supported by their families. And not just supported, we were kicked into doing our best by our families.
Yeah.
I'm, of course, a very strong elitist about the class of 76 because I think it's the greatest high school class the world has ever seen.
I think we only have like a one camera shot on. Okay, now they've switched. It's the rolling eyes. Well, you know what? There's something. There has something to be said about that year, 1976, and it wasn't just the private schools. I mean, every
That's right.
school on Guam went through the same thing with Typhoon Pamela.
Yeah.
That
Well,
just floored us.
that was crazy. The greatest benefit to Typhoon Pamela was not having to do final exams.
Oh, yeah.
That it was assumed that we
Yeah,
would
but you were
graduate.
NHS. You were.
I was not an NHS.
Oh, you weren't.
I was not.
Oh, I assumed. Well,
It's people like me
well,
that
your
make the
standard
top.
just went down a little bit with me. I just all this time thought.
Well, that
Well,
was
you
an elite
probably-
group.
Yeah, yeah.
NHS was an elite
yeah,
group.
Yeah.
So I was
well,
not
it
an
was a lot
NHS.
harder to get into, wasn't
Right.
it? It was a
Right.
lot harder to get into.
And you know, I think I always had a C in PE, and you had
Is
to
that
have
what brought you down?
you had to have a certain grade point average, and you couldn't have any grade below a B. And
Yeah,
I could
and then
never
you-
get over that ceiling, that C
Yeah.
ceiling in
Well,
PE.
there was also attitude, and you had to have.
That
like
was
a
probably
certain-
my problem.
Your problem. I'm sure that was my problem. Was the attitude? It wasn't the academics. But now you've gone into a whole nother arena. Is this new for you, being at Westcare?
It is. The first week or the first time we had an all-staff meeting, I mentioned to my colleagues that while I'm no longer in education, I realized that human service work, which is what Westcare does, supports education, right? That when we take care of veterans, we're supporting veterans who are parents or grandparents or guardians of kids in schools, or we have a healthy relationships program or a youth decision-making program that we're working on. And they all feed into what's best for education, but it's a different way of looking at human beings, right? It's looking at something even more basic than education. It's talking about their basic lives. And the one thing I've been spending a lot of time with is our support services for veteran families, which deals with veterans who are homeless or literally homeless or veterans who are vulnerable to being homeless.
That that's almost painful hearing that.
Yeah.
On Guam. I mean, just on Guam, just in our veterans homeless.
Yeah.
How can a patriotic Guam, as much as we tout and brag about that, have people walk without a place to live? How is that possible?
Well, the first thing is that I think the veterans themselves are individuals, right? So regardless of whether or not they are veterans. Now, some of the situations they're in now are a function of them being veterans. Some of that has to do with health issues, physical health issues, or behavioral health issues. Some of it has to do with the fact that there's some younger veterans, they may have served in the military, but when they came back, whatever skills they developed in the military really were not transferable to jobs that they could get right away. And so that's a challenge. And there's no doubt that economics, behavioral health, physical health, family relations, all of those contribute to homelessness. And so our job is not just to put them in a place to live. Yeah, that's the most crucial thing, right? Get them off the streets, make sure they're safe, and in a respectful way, right? But the other part is, what are we going to do to help them so that whatever situations are preventing them from having stable housing, we'll work on that. So one of those is some of our veterans might qualify for funding to go to the Guam Trades Academy, so they could get a job that will get them into stable housing.
But is it all about reaching them, though? I mean, you say that
It
you have
is.
to do it with dignity, and you got to. There's at their own pace, right?
And at their own level of pride. Now, if somebody's literally sleeping on the beach or sleeping in his or her car with families, somebody might refer them or we might find them. We have outreach workers who go to the beach, they go into the jungles, they go to different places, they go to a mom and pop stores, they go to the mayor's
Are you looking
offices.
for veterans specifically?
We actively are seeking them out so that we can have a chance to at least support them, right? But then those who have to come to us and say, hey, I've been really trying, but I'm behind in my rent. And if I don't pay my rent, I'm going to get evicted. So we find out if they're eligible, and if they are eligible, we support them, might help pay for arrears and utilities. But then the other part is we say to them, hey, you need to come back really often, and we need to look at this plan that you've created and see the extent to which you're following that plan. Try to get a job. There are a couple of guys at the Department of Labor who've been great partners in helping us with that. Or even going to Guam Behavioral Health and Wellness and partner with them and say, hey, we've got somebody who needs some support, who needs some guidance, who needs even people that maybe they need meds.
You had a conference recently. What was that about?
It's a very lofty term. It was the Summit to End Veteran Homelessness. Wow. That's it. As of 3 o'clock on Tuesday, it ended.
Wow.
You believe that, right?
No.
Okay, it didn't happen. But the idea was we were trying to bring together all the heads of the various government agencies or nonprofit organizations, even some representatives from business, to sit down and say, hey, what are we going to do so that we can reduce or even eliminate homelessness? And some of the things that we talked about, like pooling all our resources and having one comprehensive guide for veterans. Easy enough, not going to cost anybody a lot of money. Or Peter John Camacho was there, and I mentioned the idea of could everybody in the emergency room be aware that if a veteran were to come in and the veteran is homeless, that our phone number is found somewhere so that they can be referred. Pretty easy, right? Mm-hmm. So let's not wait until we see him on the beach. If somebody else identifies him, let's find a way to support him. And I think that's what we've got to do.
That's a long road. I mean, and it's a tough problem to solve. And it seems to grow quicker than, are they outpacing your efforts?
Actually, they're not. I actually don't know because we don't know what we don't know, right?
Right.
But I would say that the numbers of individuals we're serving has reduced slightly. And part of that means that we have to go out and find the veterans. But we're an island, so there's a critical mass right here. Mm-hmm. And unless there are transients who come to Guam, that doesn't necessarily increase in terms of the literally homeless veterans. In terms of those who are vulnerable to homelessness, that might increase. And that's actually the population we deal with.
That's
the
where
most.
you want to grasp before they go over the edge.
So one of the things we're doing is we partnered up with Gura. They had a group of houses up in Jigo, on the back road next to UP Elementary. There's a group of houses there that we refurbished by Gura. They've turned them over to us. And we're going to use them for some of our current or past clients, and the idea is to keep them there as long as they're eligible for our programs. And even after they're eligible, we will continue to only charge them rent that we feel is reasonable. Like we follow the GURA guidelines, only 30% of their gross incomes. We continue to provide them with case management. So if they need some support in terms of employment or job training, we're going to try to support that. The other thing is we've got some projects, like they're all going to have families. We're going to try to get some playground equipment. We're going to try to encourage them having gardens. They're all going to be just a walk away from UP Elementary, so all the elementary kids can just walk to school.
I tell you, this is a topic that requires more than just one sit-down TV show. I think we're going to have to haul you into the studio and take some more time with you.
Haul me in.
I will haul you in. Because sometimes it's like pulling teeth, this guy. No.
Should I say publicly that when Patty calls, I usually answer if I'm not?
Well, I hope so. Thanks a lot, my friend. I
Thank
really
you.
appreciate the time that you've taken with us.
This is great.
And we'll have to have him on the radio, and then you can call in to talk to him. That was something to talk about. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.